Welcome back, everybody, to the Fulfilling Destiny podcast. And with me today are three unique individuals who could tell me a little bit more about incarceration. And I think will be a very fun day, fun evening to talk about it. So we'll start with Mr. Khalifa. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, of course. So my name is Shawn Malone Khalifa. I was incarcerated when I was 15 years old. I was sentenced to life in prison, and lucky for me, the law changed that incarcerated me, and I was released in 2020, early 2020. I was an incarcerated college student, so I was going to school while incarcerated. And when you think of incarcerated college student, you probably think that you take on the identity of incarcerated individual first, but really I felt like a college student that just happened to be incarcerated. So I really focused on my education, and when I was lucky enough to be released, I just continued going to school, and I feel like I have a lot to share about the incarceration system and whatever questions you have for us in regards to that.
You're my man. You'll be my man.
Yeah.
All right. And then we have Miss Mireille here. Would you like to please introduce yourself? Oh, you're muted.
Edit. Hi, my name is Laura J. Murray. I'm a formerly incarcerated woman. I've suffered some systemic oppression due to, I believe, being a woman. I've been incarcerated in one federal prison, two state prisons, and 9 different county jails up and down the state of California. My first prison sentence was with a cartel conspiracy in the late 90s. It was one of the largest heroin conspiracies in the US, dubbed Operation Tar Pit. My second incarceration was due to a series of bank robberies after my home was foreclosed on in the subprime mortgage and loan crisis. And I served a total of 13 years altogether, all at 85%. I am now in my last semester of the master's program, which is called the MCJC, Masters in Criminal Justice and Criminology at San Diego State, and will be going to a doctoral program in North Carolina at North Carolina State University next August.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
One for being out, and then two for doing the grind and getting to that doctorals program. That's amazing.
Thank you.
I know that we did talk about it a little bit earlier, but it's still really cool to hear that you got into it. So I'm really proud of you. So that's yes.
Thank you.
And lastly, we have Miss Funches, right? Did I get that right? Thank you. I'm bad with last names. I'm so sorry.
No worries. My name is Raquel Funches, and I have the pleasure of actually working with both Laura and Shawn at 2 different higher ed institutions. I currently am the Restorative Justice Project Specialist at Southwestern College, which is a community college in South Bay, San Diego. And I was formerly employed by San Diego State University with their Project Rebound program, which I'm sure we'll touch on a little, where I was introduced to and became really great friends with Laura. My experience with incarceration is due to family members and friends who have been in and out of the system growing up and, to this day. And I think just being a person of color, you are already stigmatized or introduced to, as Laura was mentioning, that oppression, marginalization. So I feel like my heart and passion is already in this line of work. And I think it's just a blessing and a privilege, in addition to what I do, to meet wonderful individuals like Shawn and Laura, to witness their growth from, the beginning. Like with Shawn, he was an incarcerated student while I was actually at both SDSU and Southwestern, but to see, where he's at now, transferring to SDSU, Laura transferring into SDSU, then into a graduate program, and then on to further her higher education experience, I think is just a beautiful thing that I feel really privileged to be a part of.
That's wow. So it's like small world, right? Wow, we're all connected. No, but but I mean, like I said, that means you could tell me a lot more of how, like, the dynamics between everybody here, because I don't really get often where like people are all working interconnectedly together in this way and to this extent, and in this part of in this part of society that I, like I said, I'm not that well versed in. So like, before we actually really get into deeply about your stories and your histories, is I just want to make sure clear for all my viewers that are gonna watch this, is that how do we address language and how do we address everybody here? Because, like, if we're gonna state it plainly, the only names and words or labels that I've been hearing a lot, whether social media or TV shows or movies, is that all I hear is inmate, offender, felon, convict, all of these, what, like, really harmful words, especially for what I could imagine if you're out in the system, or if you say you're justice impacted, you could get hurt, and you will get hurt by some of those labels that are attached to you. And I don't think that's fair, and I think that that could be changed. If there's anything that I am proud about this podcast, is that we're open to change, we're open to learning new things, and we're open to understanding that words and labels have meaning and intention and power. So if there is a way to address you properly, I want to make sure that's addressed now. So what is the right way to call people like you, or people who have families or friends that are in this system, or in this system currently or formerly?
I prefer returning citizen or formerly incarcerated. And for those like Raquel, I believe justice impacted is a respectful word and accurately describes someone who has family members, friends, a loved one, a spouse that is, or even a child who has a parent that has been impacted by the justice system.
Okay, that's that really does sum it up really well. And I'm not gonna lie to you, it's gonna take some time to like really put that in my mind, because, like I said, these were some of the words that had just been ingrained in my system for so long, and that's gonna take some undoing. But I'm sure by the end of the hour or two that we're here, it should be muscle memory. Should be. But thank you for clearing
I
that
hope
up for
so,
me,
yeah.
Laura. Go ahead,
Yeah, I
John.
agree with Laura's descriptive words. I agree with those. I like returning citizen. And for somebody who's system impacted, who hasn't been incarcerated themselves, but has a family member who has been, system impacted is definitely a healthier term to use. Part of the problem is that Hollywood made money off of creating these negative narratives of citizens who made mistakes, and then they've been demonized by these labels. Hollywood makes money off of portraying them as a criminal, and because it's easier for them to categorize as this is bad person, so when harm happens to them, it's by default good thing. It's not such. It makes it easier for the system to harm somebody who they label a criminal versus somebody's brother or somebody's daughter, somebody's mother, father. So
Yeah.
it's beautiful that you on your podcast having us on here, you're doing a huge service to the community by letting people become aware of these labels and the correct labels that they can use. So definitely appreciate you for that and having us on here.
No,
Allowing us to share that.
absolutely. No, absolutely, because I've always had I've always struggled with labels, or not just like how we call other people. It's partly because of how I've been raised, the institutions that I've been a part of. So like through my religion, through the schools, through my friends and family, some of those labels have been harmful to others and been harmful to me. Like, I make it pretty clear that I am LGBTQ. I'm a bisexual cisgendered woman, and some of those labels do hurt me. Whether or not it was intentional, I don't like being put in a box, because sometimes I don't fit all those boxes. It's like I'm not a stereotype, and I don't deserve to be labeled as one. And you three here, like, by extent, shouldn't be either. So if I could if I could humanize people one step at a time in any way that I can, I think that's really great. So
and if I can add something also, and just recognizing that all of these terms is really like person-centered language, regardless of what those terminologies, may be referring to, because people are so much more than what that label may mean. It's respecting someone's dignity, their unique qualities and characteristics. When as you're mentioning, that label can stick with someone forever and then negatively internalize that label. So I come from, a sociological background. So,
hey,
when you, hey, awesome. So, when you start internalizing that label, you in turn become and act out that label. So when you continuously refer to someone currently incarcerated as an inmate or an offender or prisoner, whatever that may be, the connotation of what comes with that is negative behavior, negative actions, versus referring to someone with respect as a currently incarcerated person or resident, or in my case, a student. Not just an incarcerated student, but just a student. So just recognizing this human-centered, people-centered language is so crucial to how people then internalize who they become, especially after, their release from jail or prison, wherever they're coming from.
Yeah, that's actually, sorry, Laura, go ahead.
I also noticed, to play off of what Raquel was saying, that it's reproduced. In the research that I'm having to do for my thesis, I come across the language constantly of offender, of convict, of, defendant. Like, all these words are constantly reproduced through research. So as per the conversation we had earlier, since APA is allowing first person now, it's important for us to seize that moment and to in research and to actually say this participant instead of saying this offender, or, this returning citizen. And I believe it's really important, especially in research, and especially from a returning citizen's point of view, which in criminological theory is actually called convict criminology. It's important for us that have this insight from being incarcerated to go in there, if we are going to engage in research, and to change that language as fast as we can, and to humanize the research and the people that we're doing the research on. Otherwise, it's going to be like it's been for the past 100 years, and this kind of oppression and this kind of disenfranchisement will just be reproduced and reproduced through theory and through research. So I just wanted to get that in there really quick as the academic side of it.
No, absolutely. Like, I'm trying to get into med school, so a lot of what we learn is sociology and psychology. And I have a minor in social psychology, a little bit of child and family development. It's what I've remembered. At least I hope this is right. A master label. Call it a master label, and like I said, those names and terms follow you from prison and then outside of that. So Shawn and I were having a conversation about this earlier this week. It's like, how was it trying to go back to school, find employment, stuff like that, when you have such strong labels attached, like strong labels attached to your name? Like, what was that like? Or I mean, both of you could hop in on that and tell us what is that like from a men, like from the men's experience and the women's experience. I want to know.
I can share from.
Sorry.
Yeah, no worries. We love dogs. But, so from my experience, of course, I was incarcerated so young at the age of 15. So when I was returning to society, the fact that I went in as a child is basically irrelevant according to the way the system is structured. The way my felony reads is that I have a 2020 conviction. So there's no thought even given on the employer's behalf that you committed an offense when you were a youth, and it was back in 2004 versus 2020. So the way the system is currently structured, I had I gained employment at Court Furniture, which was a really nice business where we move furniture in and out of luxury apartments. It's actually owned by Warren Buffett. So while there, I was fitting in with all the guys that worked there. We had ex-military. We just had guys that have been there sometimes nearly 20 years. I was really bonding with them, but I opened up to one of them and shared with him that I was incarcerated. So he shared this with another guy whose brother was incarcerated. But once this got shared, one of my coworkers felt like, he said he was in the military, so when something came up, he needed to report it up the chain of command. So that's what he said. And he went to the main supervisor of the warehouse and shared with him, hey, Shawn was in prison. He has a felony. And I thought we didn't hire felons here. So I had to have a talk in the office now. So now I was doing a job I loved. I could have had a future doing that. It was my favorite job since being released. But within seconds of my supervisor finding out, I was called into the office and given the talk. And he sat me down and he tried to be as polite as possible, but the words he was using was so harmful, because if you're in my community, or if you come from Raquel's background, Laura's background, it would be hurtful to say, you came from here, so therefore you don't fit into our community. We don't want you. We're going to continue to harm you, because this loss of income and loss of employment could have led to homelessness. It could have led to any kind of relapse that I may have been
Right.
struggling with. So there's just so much more disastrous consequences that could come from disenfranchising somebody. So for me to continue to experience that for something that happened when I was 15 years old, the structure of our system is basically telling you that you are the worst thing you've ever done. You are what happened back when you were 15 years old for the rest of your life, when that's not the case. And
Mm-hmm.
people in our field are continuing to educate ourselves and individuals like yourself and your audience that that's not the case. We're completely different. I want to go work, and I want to go work hard, and I want to be like everybody else, but you're not given that opportunity.
You're
You know
like
what?
doubly punished again.
Exactly. And a little bit of what Laura shared is that before formerly incarcerated individuals weren't invited, and returning citizens weren't invited to the table to discuss policies that had to do with formerly incarcerated returning citizens. It was just scholars that were reading books on incarceration.
But
So
they
now that
weren't
you have
there.
individuals like Laura that gets to write these research papers from a lived experience similar to Viktor Frankl's lived experience when he went through a concentration camp, this is where the impact's going to come from, and the real healing is going to happen in our community. And at the end of the day, we get what everybody wants, and that's a reduction in crime, healthier communities, less victims of crime, because hurt people hurt people. You don't continue to hurt people. So a better approach that court furniture could have taken was, hey, you know, that I'm sorry that that's where you came from, but you're such a great employee. We're going to continue to employ you. You know, had some kind of healthy conversation like, hey, we'll approach our board and see if they could overlook this, versus just
Mm-hmm.
cut blank. They told me we can't have people like you on our premises. So that language is so hurtful and disastrous.
Mm-hmm.
Like when they said that, it was appalling. And basically I found even greater employment here at SDSU with Wesley House, which is Student Support Services. So at the end of the day, I'm blessed with an organization that embraced my former incarceration. They champion it, they highlight it on their website. So I've found a healthy space. And this is growing. It could be more than just Wesley SDSU. It can grow to court furniture eventually. So hopefully that'll become the societal norm that we support our returning citizens, because returning citizen just implies what it is. A citizen was removed from society and now they're coming back into society. Somebody's son, daughter, mother, father. That's
Well
my
put. I have another question for you after, but I wanna touch base with Laura real quick.
Yeah.
You did mention briefly that whether I forgot whether if it's just now or in our previous like introductory meeting, is you said you had a relapse. So you were like what Shawn said, like if you were turned away from employment or schooling when you were coming back to society as a returning citizen, and you were turned away and you relapse into something else, what was that like?
Well, when I exited from federal prison, in retrospect now, I look back at it and I believe that I did not arm myself with the coping skills that I needed to survive. When I took a hit such as, you know, that recession that hit us, you know, in 2008, 9, 10, I wasn't able to survive and desist and stop from engaging in crime because I had not only had I not prepared myself, but community supervision and I feel like the system itself failed me in such a way. I'm taking accountability, you know, for not being prepared and coping myself, absolutely, and for my actions. But I also feel that the programs and the tools that I were given were not sufficient. So the thing is that women make up a very small portion of the prison population, only 7% per the Bureau of Justice Statistics.
Really?
But out of that 7% of women, 100% of them come out to male programs, male practices, and male policies. So when women enter prison, they enter through pathways that are not the same as men. There's sexual abuse, domestic abuse, trauma, violence. Women have higher mental health issues and also resort to self-medicating at much more higher rates than men. But these issues are not addressed through there. So I feel like that's an impression, that's an oppression of itself when a woman paroles. So yes, I did relapse, and I did end up, after my home was foreclosed on, going on that spree. And I'm sure it was a direct result of my relapse. I felt like I didn't have any other option. I felt like I was very isolated and that I didn't have support. Now, the second time I paroled, and I had a lot of time to think about it.
That's okay.
I paroled with a completely different outlook. First of all, what I saw in state prison and the women that I saw and the social injustice I saw lit such a fire under me that I stopped thinking about myself. I stopped feeling sorry for myself in the foreclosure of my home. And I swore if I got out that I was going to do everything I could to go back and help those women through policy reform, review, implementation, and practice. I was going to learn this system top to bottom. If I had to spend 18 hours a day on campus, and of course, SDSU is a beautiful campus, so why not, right?
Right.
So, and I really was driven, to find these answers. And in doing that, it not only helped me reintegrate, but, I'm also hopefully going to be able to impact other women. And the thing with me was, I feel like I was pretty well assimilated. I was older, when I was arrested, and I felt like I was pretty well assimilated. I knew how to fill out a job application. I know what a decent resume, not a perfect one, but I knew how to build a resume.
Right.
And I realized that most of the women that I was in prison with, the average education, because I became a teaching associate, a teacher's aide and assistant in prison, was the average education was 5th grade. These women didn't have a chance if they were to parole. And like we discussed earlier, as far as intersectionality goes, these women suffered from multiple traumas, multiple oppression. A Black woman, a Muslim woman, a Black Muslim woman, a Hispanic, that English is her second language. There were so many oppressions. And I sat there thinking how white I was and how,
right.
and how, these multiple oppressions made such an effect and such an impact on people's lives. They never got to go to a good school. They were never offered the opportunities that I had. Just from being white, I had opportunity. I can say that I hate racism and that I want nothing to do with racism, but guess what? I'm still going to benefit from racism. Just like Shawn is still going to benefit from being a male in a patriarchal society, so I feel that, women really, and especially since they're the highest growing population today in the prison system, they really need something that addresses that addresses the pathways of trauma, that addresses assimilation, and all those issues. I mean, my heart just breaks, for those people that I left behind because they never had a chance. And parole always tells me, we wish they could all be like you. We wish they could all assimilate like you. Well, first of all, you would have wished not to know me, 15 years ago. And second of all, I was assimilated to begin with. I've always, had the kind of the luck of the Irish, so to speak, but it's really the luck of being white is all it is. And I try to tell them, what about people who were never assimilated in school or in the job market or, in the economic market or represented in politics? What about those people? You expect them to now have a felony and experience the trauma of prison, which reproduces all those things that woman went already through prior to prison. So, prison is a trauma in itself, you know? So you expect those women to come out who are never assimilated with all that trauma and being re-traumatized and just say, I'm going to go get a low-paying service sector job and everything's going to be great and I'm going to get my kids back. It doesn't happen. And it doesn't happen because older white males are making this policy that does not serve women and is that are built for men. So I'm sorry about my rant.
No. It's
but like that's like what really gets me fired up, you know, and that's basically what my thesis is on, and hopefully what my dissertation will also expand upon, you know, is the intersectionality, the lack of assimilation, the lack of services, and the lack of policies that support successful reintegration for women.
Good question though. Anyone else could answer here, like if you have knowledge. I've heard this in passing, I heard this in class, and I guess it's whatever knowledge I remember from like social media or media in general, is that, I don't know if your residents or former residents would know, is it sometimes just easier going back to prison just because assimilating back to society is too hard? Like you said, like some of the women that you were with were not ready to come, we're not ready for the world. Yeah, like they didn't have the skills that you had, right? The knowing how to write a job, or writing a job resume, an application, signing up for classes or school, or you know, XYZ. And like you said, some people just return back to their old habits, their ways. Is it sometimes easier just going back to prison instead of just reintegrating back to society? I know that's a really weird, long word question.
No, that's a really good question. And let me tell you, even with everything that I have and the skills that I have, the first couple weeks I in a reentry program, I went to the parole agent every day and told him to send me back. Because after a certain amount of time, you do get used to the security of prison.
Like you had a routine and all that stuff.
Yes, and I really wasn't sure how I was going to go back to school or what that looked like or any of that. I went to this program with virtually no plans except for maybe driving heavy equipment again. And let's face it, I'm getting a little old to drive heavy equipment. It's very hard manual labor, you know, and it's backbreaking. And I was really disillusioned, and I was, to tell you the truth, terrified of coming out here and going through that same trauma that happened to me when I lost my home and I became homeless and I lived in my car and it was 120 degrees out, but I had no gas to run the air conditioning in my car. And I walked around the store and looked at food and cried and walked out because I couldn't shoplift.
But you didn't have money.
I couldn't get food stamps because I had that federal felony. Wow. So I was stuck. I was stuck going to churches for food. I was stuck living in my car, and I was stuck thinking the world does not care about me. And it was so hurtful that I did pick up a Burger King napkin and write a bank robbery note and started robbing banks. And to get out and to think, oh my God, is that going to happen to me again? I mean, it is so scary. You know what I mean? It's, to tell you the truth, it's just terrifying. And until someone finally noticed and said, pulled me aside, an education coordinator, and said, hey, you know, what are you doing? Do you want to go back to school? And I was like, yeah, I want to go back to school more than anything, you know, and I want to go to San Diego State. And she's like, if I get this chance for you, will you start acting right? Because basically,
she gave it to you straight.
I can be a management problem at times. And so I said, yes, you know, yes, I will. I'll do whatever it takes. And that was it. That was what flipped me around. But when I paroled, the parole agent said, you know, this school thing is a nice little hobby you got going here, Murray, but we want you to work. Your crime was monetarily motivated, which it wasn't. I was actually, I mean, my home was foreclosed on and I was mad. It was more like a revenge thing, but we won't split hairs. But
oh, dang.
Yeah, so he said, you're going to work and you're going to have a job. And that's all there is to it. If you want to go to school as a little hobby, that's fine, but you will work and you will comply to that condition. So I shot very low and got a low service sector job at a feed store. I lied. I was wearing the ankle monitor during the interview and was given a pass to go 30 miles on a bus to interview for this job. I went, I interviewed. They asked if I was a felon on the application, and I did not check the box because I figured it's a temporary job. It's not, you know, I need it, you know, and it felt really lousy to lie. I had to basically, I know I'm a bank robber, but I don't like lying. So I lied, and you know, that makes you feel pretty crappy to do that, you know, because they tell you, we want you to assimilate and we want you to do this and we want you to live an honest life. But it's kind of like either you survive or you lie, you know, and that's another sad state of affairs. You know, if you want us to assimilate, then stop creating these barriers like the felony box on the application.
Oh man, yeah.
Yeah, so,
I have a slight comment on that, and it honestly throws me off as someone who hadn't really commit anything. So that's I wanted to talk to everyone here about it, and I kind of want to hear from Helen Shawn. So when you applied for applications to anything, at some point after you get past the demographics and your biography, it says, "Have you committed a crime, a misdemeanor or a felony?" And even if I check no, and I still read it because I'm curious. It's like, how would you even go about to explaining all that? And you only have like, I don't know, 2,000 something characters to explain whatever you've done. And I'm just like, how do you all go about it? Or is that, like you said, is that unfair to know? Or is it just like humor me? Because I really have no idea what that's like.
So if I could touch on that and then go back to touch on what Laura was speaking about with the previous question, I had some input on that as well.
Yeah.
There was a movement called Ban the Box. I think it's still going on.
Never heard of it. So this is something new.
So that's a good thing. We should definitely research. So if you haven't heard of Ban the Box, look it up and support it. So there's no reason to have to know whether you've been incarcerated or not for an employer besides a discriminatory reason. That's the only reason it exists. So that's why you would want to get rid of it. In my case, I was told if your felony is older than 7 years, then you don't have to mark that box. So I've been marking no, but when I get my background checks, it shows that I have a 2020 conviction for robbery. And to educate the viewers, I had a murder conviction in 2004. I didn't actually commit the murder. Under the old law, you were allowed to be convicted of a murder. You were around or near or conspired to commit a different crime and it happened. So that was the situation I was in. I was convicted of that murder. But in order to get out of prison, I had to plead guilty to a lesser offense, which was the robbery. That was my only other option, or just continue doing life in prison. So I took the robbery. So now on my record, it shows that 2020 robbery conviction. But to touch on what Laura was speaking on, as a lifer, and all of my peers were lifers, there was nothing more than we wanted than to come home. That's all we dreamed about. We just want to come home. That's our main priority.
Right.
But then when you come home, I have a peer. He's from Los Angeles County. He lived in a dangerous environment. He wanted nothing more than to come home. But the home that he left was dangerous. As same case for me. The home that I left was dangerous. My community was violent and dangerous. It wasn't safe to just merely exist there. So I had a peer recently, did nearly 25 years, released back to his old community. He struggled with the same thought, like, okay, maybe, he didn't even, at first he was hesitant to get out of prison. He thought about staying in there because all of a sudden you get this safe space in prison where you get some community support programs. You're acknowledging what's wrong with your character. You're actually helping people, being altruistic. But then when you get back to that dangerous community with no social services, and the same factors that led you to be incarcerated in the first place still exist without support, because for a lot of us, societal factors led to our incarceration. Although we can take responsibility all that we want, there's a huge influence pushing you towards this, which was called the school to prison pipeline and similar effects. But basically the mindset is, I really want to go home, but then you get to the community and you're like, I've even thought about it. Like, wait a minute, I had life, but I had a TV, I had a bed, I wouldn't play sports every day. I was pretty comfortable. So it might be smart for me to go back now versus losing my life out here when I'm faced with a lot of dangers and even to go through the process of committing another crime, something that we would never want to do as a former lifer. We've made these lifelong commitments to not commit more crimes, but we know the potential that exists out here because you're being pushed in that direction sometimes from your societal influences. But the crazy part is that this highlights the societal structures that influence behavior. So this is a good point to shine a light on. It's not us being deviant. We're wholly thinking we want to go home and live on a farm and milk cows and be productive citizens. But when you get out here and you're in the city and you have people threatening your life, whether it's law enforcement or your peers, and you don't have a lot of money to eat, and then you're being denied basic services. Sometimes you're denied EBT and you're denied health coverage. And when I first was released, I went in as a 15-year-old and I'm released on my own in a county I've never lived in, but I was denied healthcare services. To me, that's it's a huge societal flaw. And it doesn't always have to be intentional. Sometimes it's a matter of nobody paying attention or caring enough. And then that's where you come in with your podcast to shine light on it, so that our legislators can see this. Okay, Gloria can see this.
Honestly, I do at one point want to have a politician come here to talk about why some of those things haven't been addressed, or if they have been addressed privately and not publicly, right? Like within discussions in the city hall or something like that, and then why didn't it pass or why did it fail? Yada yada yada. But
and
actually,
imagine, sometimes they fail because you have a huge force, which is your Correctional Officers Association, your Police Officers Association.
Right.
They have millions of dollars to promote these laws not passing. And then if it's someone just like a couple of us trying to raise the issue, if you don't have the funding, you're not likely to, your legislation and your law and your motives aren't likely to win out if you don't have enough funding. So a lot of it comes down to funding and support.
Right. That's actually what I wanted to bring up too. It's actually with you, Raquel. You've mentioned that you were just as impacted, and with these, with Laura and Shawn, they said that when they came out, they had no support, or they were tempted to go back because whatever environment they were in were very dangerous or unsupportive, and they're barely hanging on. What was that like for you, who is a family member or was a friend, or to watch all of that go down, because you help support these two in varying degrees. So I want to know what that's like as someone who's lived not necessarily a life experience, but someone who's watched someone else go through it and you had to let it unfold in front of you.
Sure. I think my experiences, and I'm going to touch upon it now as someone in this role in this work, because I feel like it's more impactful as a, 28-year-old versus a 7-year-old, and witnessing those differences and those lived experiences. Right. And honestly, it's just disheartening. I feel like that's the best word to use when you witness firsthand students get out, even when they have familial support. Where am I going to live? Where am I going to get my next meal? How am I going to get from A to B? How am I going to get to that job interview that's going to help me pay for my meals, pay for my housing, in addition to all those other barriers? So I feel like it's just disheartening and it's saddening to know that although I can provide as much emotional and, mental support, I'm still caught in this limitation, that boundary of how much support I can provide. I can't provide, financial support to every student that gets out. That's just impossible for me to do individually. And as both of, Shawn and Laura mentioned, those policies that are in place, those foundation structures that need to be transformed, not reformed, because our justice system is working just as it was intended to. So I know when we hear criminal justice reform, it sounds like some great hoorah moment, but there's nothing to reform because the system is working just fine in the eyes of who created them. We need a complete transformation or abolition of our system. And, that's funny that you mentioned that, because I was in a webinar not too long ago when they mentioned, when people hear abolition, they're like, whoa, you're way too progressive, way too liberal. But we really need to reframe and restructure our entire society to be able to recognize what abolition even means. So we can't abolish prisons without abolishing the society that we live in, and the negativity, the stigmas, the dehumanization, the marginalization, et cetera, of what's happening in our society. So it needs to be a whole societal transformation in order to be able to imagine what a world would look like without oppression, without oppressive systems like our incarcerated system. But just going back to supporting folks who are, reintegrating back to our community is extremely crucial. And I'm sure you'll touch on it a little bit as we move forward. But, when we have programs in place, that's wonderful. But you need to have the appropriate staff members in those programs to be able to support these folks that are coming out. And I think that's what's really important. People think, oh, look at this program here, look at this policy here, look at that. That's wonderful to have. But when you don't have the correct staff in place, when you don't have passionate, compassionate, understanding, and non-judgmental, and just people who just understand what's going on, or empathizing, I should say, because I don't understand firsthand what it's like, but I can empathize all the way with what folks are going through as they re-enter back into our society. So I think it's more than just developing these programs and developing these policies, but who is behind that and who is leading, that forefront and leading that fight to justice.
Absolutely. You make a very good point of, it's a rehaul of what is already established. Like Shawn, we talked about this, like it's to my understanding, like people could correct me on this if I'm completely wrong. It's my dogs. I love the three of them, but I swear they're trolling me sometimes, that they love to bark when I'm recording, and then drives me insane. It's okay. Can I please ask my question? Thank you. All right. Sorry. It's like I said, Shawn and I were just talking about this very casually, whether or not that this is the right way to say this. Like the incarceration system, like you said, it's working because it keeps people where they need to be, and whether that's the officers themselves, the residents that live in them, and the constant cycle of coming in, coming out, coming in, coming out, coming in, coming out. It's lucrative. Like people make money off of this. If it's the officers that's being paid, it's the administrative board's being paid, it's the whoever is working in the doctor's office there, the lawyers, the prosecutors, the judges. That's a lot to go through. And like you said, I could see programs working, but then I can also imagine the people that work in them are understaffed, or they're overworked, or there's not enough. So that puts a lot of burden on people who are really, what I mean by burden is that it's just a lot to help. It's a lot to bring these people back without them falling into, like, whether I guess I don't know how to say this properly. It's just like going back to their old ways, or falling back into those habits of like, I want to be safe, and if this is the way I feel safe, I'm going to do the thing. And that could be crime or drugs or XYZ. So like, because Raquel, you are working in ways to help support, what do you think we should do next for returning citizens? And that's
Wow.
it's a very loaded question. I know. I kind of threw you in there, but it's just like, I don't know. And what you do already, like maybe tell us a little bit more about what you do to help returning citizens.
Well, I think in answering that in a mini nutshell is recognizing that reentry should begin prior to someone's release. So many people think once you get out, okay, let's worry about housing, let's worry about employment, let's worry about everything else, mental health services and all of that. But you already are cutting them off when you're waiting until they're out to seek those social services.
Okay, I did not know that, yeah.
So to me, I think it's crucial, even at minimum a year out. And that's assuming that these folks are returning to our counties, to our communities. There's so many students that I serve inside that are going to be paroling to LA County or Alameda County or all throughout the state that, if we can't provide that support, okay, that gives us time to connect them to folks in those particular service areas. Because, as much as we would like, it's just a 2-woman job where I'm at, it's my director and myself. So if we had enough ample time to connect those particular students to folks in those communities they're going to be reentering to, that's crucial. And that can't happen days or months before or even after their release. So I would say, just in a nutshell, reentry needs to happen prior to someone's release. And then to give you a little bit of background on what I do at Southwestern, we serve our currently incarcerated students and our formerly incarcerated and justice impacted students on campus. Most of our program, I would say, is more robust with our currently incarcerated folks. So it's just supporting them through their academics, enrolling them in their courses, providing, the curricula on all the 5 yards that we're operating at our local prison at Richard J. Donovan Correctional Facility, as well as East Mesa Reentry Facility for Men, which is a county jail in Otay Mesa. So really making sure our students have those wraparound support services. And in addition to not just the academia curriculum part, but offering tutoring, counseling, writing workshops. So bringing as much of our college campus onto the prison facility. So what we like to call it Donovan campus, to really make sure students are aware, like Shawn was mentioning, when you're a student, when you walk into that education compound, we make it known that you are a student. Once you're in this classroom, once you're in those students, we refer to people by their first name. They're no longer, I hate to say it, but inmate so-and-so or whatever number they are. However, they're usually referred to by correctional officers. So we try to internalize and emphasize as much as we can that once you're in our space, it does feel like you're in a completely different realm once you're in the college experience, because faculty are coming in from the college that are treating you like any other traditional college student on their campus. The only difference is the location. So helping students continuously remember that you are a student when you're in our presence. And of course, that also comes with backlash with our correctional officers, because we're viewed as too nice or over familiar with our students. But in reality, we're just treating humans as humans.
Humans, yeah. They're not, I hate to say it like this, they're not dogs. You don't treat people like dogs by giving them that name, your inmate so-and-so, your XYZ so-and-so. Yeah, that's low. I'm so sorry that I did not know that sooner when it comes to just labels and names. Not until I went something, maybe not it's equal 50-50, but something similar. That really sucks.
Totally.
Can I just say that is crucial in the identity transformation of going
right, like you said,
a residence, in a prison to going to a student, in a university or in a college. For me, that was huge. For me, my only identity and the only thing I had been called for a number of years by staff and by peers alike was bank robber. You know what I mean? But when I got out, I mean, that was what was called over the loudspeaker. That's what was called at medical. That's what I was called. And so to be able to understand when I got out that identity is not going to serve me out here, that it's not going to serve me out here, and that I needed so badly to latch onto something else that was pro-social, that helped me, assimilate and help me grab onto something for my own hope. I needed hope, because when I got out, I really did feel as an older woman hopeless, in being put back in the society. It, like Shawn said, all you wish is that you could go home, but when there is no home, my parents were 600 miles away and in their 90s, there's not much support they could do or want to do for me at that point. My son was deployed, so I had to have this hope that I had the ability to transfer this identity. And in order for that to happen, people at school, I had to go to Mesa College for a semester. And I don't know whether it was fate or destiny or what, but I had the most wonderful professors that encouraged me, that knew I was still in custody at a reentry program, that brought me snacks because we were not allowed to carry food, cash, or cell phones to this college. We were highly monitored on the ankle monitors by parole, and they were so supportive, and they were so impressed that I could still achieve what I achieved under that duress, that it allowed me to shift and say, you know what, I'm not bank robber anymore. I'm a student. I'm a damn good student. And not only that, I think I can help these people I left behind. Oh my God, this is huge. I got to go for it. And that was my whole thought process. So, I mean, people like Raquel, and Raquel was a huge part of that. And people like Raquel and people like those professors that encouraged me, those were people that looked beyond that identity, that spoiled identity that I had, and encouraged me to build a success story upon that, you know, and that's exactly what I did. So God forbid that no one had done that. God forbid no one would have believed in me or encouraged me. It would have been a lose-lose. You know, you have to pay for my incarceration again. And what a shame that I have to be incarcerated when I'm a 4.0 student in the future. What a damn shame. It's a lose-lose. But now nobody's paying for me. The state's not paying my way. I'm accepting responsibility. I'm turning around and gratefully helping the next woman make it through this struggle. So, I mean, I don't see how spending money on education for formerly incarcerated individuals could ever be a bad thing, you know? I mean, the school has surrounded me with resources. You know, I'm no longer food unstable. I no longer worry about my rent. I teach 20 hours at school. Everything was self-contained for me to succeed at San Diego State. All I had to do was dig in and try my hardest. And you know, I mean, I'm so grateful for people like Raquel.
Aww.
And I feel like you totally are touching upon the transformative power of education overall. Because like I've known Laura since the beginning, and
how many years? How many years between the
4 years, or a little over 4 years now.
Oh, that's a long time. Yeah, that's pretty long.
And so when I met Laura, she introduced herself as bank robber, you know, so to witness that identity shift is so,
that's touching.
It is touching. That's a very beautiful word. Yeah, it really is, because to see where she's at now, I'm not saying it was like she was down here and now, you know, she labeled herself. And, you know, now it's kind of just jokingly, this is who I was, blah, 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 blah. But to have been introduced as bank robber, it's like, whoa, okay, hi, nice to meet you, you know, but recognizing now how detrimental that could be. So I think it's just touching upon the transformative power of education and what that can do to an individual, formerly incarcerated or not, moving forward in their success and their pathway.
I was actually kind of curious, since we did talk about, like you said, the transformative process of treating someone with a positive label, something that gives someone a chance. Like to you, Shawn and Laura, you said that was your lifeline. When someone gives you something else to latch onto, whether it's not just your number or the inmate or robber, right? This is gonna be like, this is the part where it gets a little sad, or maybe sad or angry or whatever feelings that come up. I wanted to know, when you were incarcerated, what was that like? Because you said it's either lack of support out there. Was there more lack of support inside when you were first enrolled? And then if you were there a long time, did it change over time? Like for instance, like going in, would you be too scared to reach out to services, and then like say 5-10 years later you feel comfortable and at home? And then it's a very long-winded question, I know, I'm sorry, I don't know how to
I can share some of so I went into the juvenile system first.
Okay.
So when you go into the juvenile system, they have a high school set up for you. So you're going to attend juvenile hall high school, and your incentive is you want to be out of your cell. So you're going to go to school. Everybody in juvenile hall goes to school and loves it, because you don't want to be in your cell. And in juvenile hall, you don't have television, radios like you have in prison. So I had a huge incentive to become education. I went in with a 3rd grade education level. So from 3rd grade on in the community, I didn't do any schoolwork. And the only thing I did was either get in fights or steal and get kicked out of school. So now to be incarcerated at the age of 15, and I was addicted to drugs from 12 to 15. So to have like this stunted development in education and then all of a sudden get into it, I was able to earn my high school diploma in juvenile hall. And for me, it wasn't because it's juvenile hall versus prison, you're automatically going to school in juvenile hall. But I wanted to go to college. I wanted more. So my reward for graduating was I was transferred to the adult system. As soon as I turned 18 and earned my high school diploma, I had to go to the adult county jail, which education all of a sudden became the lowest of priorities.
Right.
And it was really dangerous there. And I progressed on to prison a year after that, because I was eventually convicted. But my first prison was our highest security level in California. Outside of your security housing units, you have level 4 180 yards, which is the prison parole yard, basically, when you get in trouble in prison. I was really young. I was 19. I didn't do anything to earn my way there, but we were in a state of extreme overcrowding at that time, back in 2008. So they said that's why I was sent there. So I attempted to get into college. That's what I wanted to do. My facility, I didn't even know this because I'm so new to prison, but it's literally the worst prison yard you can go to. There's no day room program that's written into their policy. Their policy is if you don't get a 115 within 3 months, you can leave. So you're technically on a punishment yard.
Punishment yard. Yeah.
Anytime you come out to cell, you have 2 gunners lined up on both windows, ready to shoot somebody who pulls out a knife, because that's your threat level. Like, people were stabbing officers. So I wanted to go to college in this environment, and my only option was correspondence courses. So my first chance reaching out to enroll in college, I did it through correspondence to Coastline. But when my books arrived to R&R, the correctional officers rejected them. And this was known as not encouraging education. So
they
weren't,
you dumb?
they weren't excited. Yeah, they banned a number of books that you can get to educate yourself. But also, when you enroll in college, you get a chrono that says you're allowed to have these books. I attained that chrono as well. But that's an excuse that your correctional officers can use to deny you access to education. They said you don't have a chrono, so your books were rejected. Those books cost over $200. So now I'm supposed to reorder those books after you send them back, after my semester already started. And this wasn't the only institution that did that to me. It took me over a year to earn my way out of that prison, and I went to Lancaster, another level 4. Same thing happened. I took a Spanish class, correspondence. I was supposed to get CDs. You can only have 10 CDs, but for college, you get approval to get extra. So I was getting Spanish CDs, but they rejected them, sent them back, said I don't have a chrono. I did have a chrono. Same thing. So
the heck?
After my negative experiences with trying to get educated while I was level 4, I just completely quit. I told myself, if I'm gonna continue to fail in college because I can't even get my textbooks, then I'm just gonna focus on working and going through prison. It wasn't until I eventually became level 2 and Southwestern College arrived with a face-to-face program in San Diego's local prison on ER that I was able to attend college. Because this was the first time that Patrice and Raquel, they were able to bring, like, face-to-face college existed, but it's relatively newer because for a while they were only doing correspondence. But some prisons started letting face-to-face in around 2014, 2015. So Southwestern College at Donovan on ER, which was a new facility, opened in December 2016. They came in for the summer of 2017. I was able to get enrolled and get into a sociology class. And that's life-changing because up until that point, the correction officers and the policy was to discourage my higher education. But now that Southwestern College was there, they kind of rescued me and saved me. Because without that college platform to parole to eventually and be motivated to be engaged in, there would have been no support. I don't even want to say a little bit. There may have been a minor support, but college is what saved me out here and what saves a lot of people. So I'm a huge advocate that, and you see Patrice working on it now, and Raquel working on it now. It's called the prison to school pipeline. To me, it's a newer term. I'm not as familiar with it. I don't know if for everybody it is, but I'm hearing it more often. It's being developed. And what's so important about that is that your correctional officers get millions of dollars to promote harm towards you, and your volunteers don't get this millions of dollars in funding, but they come and have the biggest impact. So you have volunteers that come in and get paid very little, but they're the ones that are going to support you in your transition. Eventually, I think not only should correctional officers be required to have a 2-year education, at least in college, but they should also, since they're getting so much money, be responsible sort of for your transition as well. So while you're in institution, they should engage with you, play games with you, and when you get out, they should be there to support you and help you find housing. The same way your volunteers do. If they're not going to provide that service, they shouldn't be paid as much, at least in my opinion. So when I'm able to eventually speak with legislators, that's the stance I'm going to take in the education I can deliver to them. What helps us and what doesn't, and what has helped me and what helps my peers is Raquel like Southwestern College. Yeah, she literally came into the prison and she gets this legendary hero status because when she comes onto the yard,
oh dang, VIP.
Like, I'm literally serving life in prison, and you don't have many things to motivate you. But Southwestern College is one of those things. So when their staff come in, when the professors come in, you have future all of a sudden in front of you. And I'm talking about some men have life without parole, which means that their hopes rest upon hopes to come home one day. And what Southwestern College does is it gives them something to hang on to. So when it comes time to petition the governor or any other avenue that you're going to seek to remove your life without parole and come home one day, your college foundation gives you that. So higher education in prisons, to me, is one of the main answers. It's, to me, it's a holy grail answer, but definitely when you continue into the community, you need that. And I needed that. That's my saving grace out here.
Yeah, that's your, like, literally Raquel has VIP status when she comes to the prisons and all that. Like, I can see the smiles on Laura and Shawn's face up there. They're like, heck yeah, she's the reason why I feel great about being alive and being here, and I think that's really beautiful.
And can I add one thing to what Shawn's saying? Because I definitely echo everything that he just said, but on like the economic side of it, we know that for every dollar that is spent on correctional higher education saves taxpayers $4 to $5. So I'm no economist, I'm no finance, guru, but if I can spend less and gain more, that's kind of a no-brainer. Just on that one perspective. And then also recognizing that roughly 95% of folks who are currently incarcerated will be released at some point in their lifetime. Why aren't we providing the resources in addition to education? Because I feel like just in the past 4 years is when higher education and prison programs is, kind of skyrocketing and flourishing. And I would say more in the past year has it been getting more recognition that it deserves. But just in these past 4 years, I think it's just crucial to further emphasize how much higher education has uplifted and transformed many people in prison. As of today, California has 35 state prisons. As of today, all 35 state prisons have a face-to-face college program. That was almost unheard of, prior to 2015. The prisons that did have college programs were, as Shawn was mentioning, through correspondence. So everything's through mail, post, sending back and forth of assignments. And also, in addition to that, you have private colleges that are absurd in their tuition costs when you have someone that's earning 5 cents to $1 at best. There's no way they can afford quality or any form of education. So having face-to-face college programs is crucial to someone's success, in my opinion, as they transition out. I guess not only in my opinion, but research shows as well. That education is the main factor of reducing recidivism, reducing someone going back to prison. So again, that seems like a no-brainer to invest in these resources in higher education while folks are currently incarcerated.
Yeah, see, like that's the thing, that term that I hear a lot when it comes to the pandemic in general is just investment. Like, what are companies' policies willing to invest on for the greater good of the community? And like you said, like, why not put part of that money into like proper rehabilitation through education, or just through better resources or social fiscal support, and like Shawn said, like correctional officers, at least just from what I've heard, just like from what the stories that you shared, correctional officers get paid more than the volunteers that are trying to help bring you back to your feet. But that's actually one of the questions I want to know for Shawn and Laura. Coming out and having nothing, how did you all provide for yourselves while you're integrating back into society? Because I don't hear much about it, really. It's either you go back to prison, or you make it. But then from there to making it, I don't know what happens. So is there some stories that you could share about that? Especially you, Laura, because you are a woman. That's also very important for me to know as well, because the struggles of being a woman might be a lot more harder than it is for being a man, coming back to society.
I think it's kind of relative when you've been disenfranchised, for sure, like, male, female, Black, LGBTQ, that hurdle of getting over that felony and making a living is is felt really hard by all of us, but that's just in addition to some other oppressions. But
Right.
for me, it was terrifying. Like I stated before, my history, I was traumatized by our economic system and the foreclosure of my home. So for me, in my head, this loop kept playing of, you failed. You failed before and you ended up in your car. You worked a full-time job. You did everything you were supposed to do. You were good at your job and you failed. So that kind of thing is, and still is, I go into sometimes economic panic, you know.
Like paying rent and stuff.
Yeah, like paying rent. This summer, I had to live in hotels for 2 to 3 weeks because of COVID and my landlord raising the rent. And so I don't want to say I was homeless. I'd rather say I was in transition.
Financial, like housing insecurity or like.
Yeah, like housing insecurity. So, I mean, the first thing you think of is, you know, how, for me as a woman, is I need a safe place to live. I need a safe place to live. But additionally, I'm enrolled in school. And when you're enrolled in school and you're trying as hard as I am to get those grades, to get to a better program and to finally eventually get to a good PhD program, I worry constantly, as Raquel knows, about my grades, about an assignment, about this. So it's really important that when you're enrolled in school, you have a support that makes you feel safe. And that's that wraparound service that Raquel is talking about. So, you know, of course, COVID made things difficult for me, but I had coping skills this time. And I had a savings this time. So I did not end up in my car.
Better now than later, yeah.
Yeah, and I felt accomplished that I could go through this, not like last time, and resort to what I went through. I had that confidence. But when I first paroled, since I have no family in the area, I was given only one option, and that was to go to one of the very few, if not the only, women's parole and probation mixed transition home or program over on 49th and Imperial. And if you know 49th and Imperial, which intersects two gang territories, it is not, lies in the middle of a food desert. It is not the most ingratiating place that you want to go to. Like I said, the house is mixed, so there are people that are just getting out of county jail for the weekend that are still addicted to drugs, or that are lifers, that are on a positive path, trying to assimilate after 30 years to a drug-infested, gang-infested area, you know, with little employment opportunities nearby besides a rent-to-own liquor store or taco shop. And so I was given the opportunity to live there, and I lived there, and I went to college Monday through Thursday, and then Friday through Saturday, I took the bus to Del Mar every weekend and went to work there and came back. It took 3 hours to take that commute from where I was, and the bus money was on me, believe me. And
I know what that's like.
I was happy. I was happy to have a job, and my job loved me. And it was a really, even though they didn't know I was a returning citizen, and it was a pro-social, a good environment for me to do. I was exhausted, but
it was worth it.
But I did it. And then about 6 months later, parole came and said, we're going to kick you out of this house. And I said, but I don't understand why. I was totally caught off guard. He said, well, you're not attending the GED prep program. And I said, well, sir, you know that I attend San Diego State. I already have my GED. And he said, well, you're not going to any of the NA and AA in-house meetings. And I said, well, I understand that. I'm super busy, but I have a form here signed off by my NA and AA secretary to the 2 meetings I attend outside and at school. And he said, well, that's not a program by Sacramento. And then he said, you're not going to the pre-employment readiness. And I said, sir, I've had the same job since the week I paroled. I have a job already, like you've requested in my conditioned state. He said, but Sacramento wants these signatures. You don't seem to understand. You've got to leave this house. And that really threw me for a loop.
Oh, that's
Everything I was supposed to be doing. I hadn't taken out any loans. I was working part-time, and because I didn't have to pay rent, staying at the halfway house, it enabled me not to have to take out loans and to be able to, you know, pay for things that I needed.
Mhm.
But I had to leave. I had to leave that halfway house.
So where did you go?
So I ended up, on the advice of a professor with Project Rebound, taking out the loans. I had to take out the loans. I had planned on living in my vehicle for a couple of weeks. There's a shower at work. I thought I could use that shower. I'd made plans to go on transient status with parole. He had signed off on those plans, saying, sorry, you know, those are just the rules, Murray. And I wish you luck. And so I had already made that plans until a professor interceded and told me, Laura, take the loan and get a place to rent. You don't have to live in the streets. You don't have to live in your car anymore. You know, you're a member of the SDSU community, and as such, you need to be treated differently, which also made me think, you know, hey,
That's a humanizing phrase.
Yeah, like I don't deserve this. So I do deserve to stay in a nice place, a safe place. So I took out the loan, and I ended up getting a master bedroom and a house with 3 frat boys.
Oh my goodness.
Raquel gave me a little mini fridge. I still have the mini fridge.
That's so
Not to
cute.
mention, this all happened on Laura's first day of transferring to SDSU.
Yeah.
So add in all of that extra stress of being a first-time university student, feeling like you don't belong on campus, and then getting kicked out of your residence. I'm
Yeah,
sorry, I
that
had to
was-
add that.
No. That's
That was
Ivy.
all the first semester. I mean, it was so stressful, and I tried to hide it from professors, and I tried to hide it from most people except Raquel. Thank God I didn't. And
No, that's great, because
you know,
if that
I
was,
didn't-
I don't know what I would have
considered
done.
it a personal failure once again because of the trauma of me losing my place before. I considered this and internalized it as personal failure and was hesitant to reach out to the SDSU community. But once I did, then I got that support. Then I was told, hey, you don't have to live like this. And because I was used to that way of living, and it gave me a boost up. And I lived in that place for 3 years until they finally raised the rent in the middle of COVID. I don't know what they were thinking then, but you know, and I ended up in a much bigger and better place that was cheaper. But that's how the universe works. But yeah, it's been a constant battle. Like I said, even this summer, it was a battle. It's a constant battle for me. All I want is stability. That's all I want, is enough stability. I mean, I could live in a closet if it's safe.
As
you
long
know,
as it, yeah, that's
as
all
a woman, all I want is stability and security. I mean, and if I have that, then I can succeed in school. Then, you know, I can help other people. But when you're constantly up in the air, worrying and stressing about other stuff and trying to concentrate in school, it's super difficult. And that's why we need that support. Yes, all students need support, but as returning citizens, that instability, and like what Shawn was saying, coming back into the same neighborhood, that instability can make you say, you know what, I can't
Yeah, you can't do it, go back.
try and survive. I can't do it, or nobody cares, or the same thing's going to happen to me. And that's where we need that kind of wraparound support. You know, in addition to that, I've been seeing the same counselor at San Diego State for a number of years, you know, and he's just amazing. He knows my history. And I will continue to seek counseling in my PhD program, you know, because I know I need these skills, you know, and I know past trauma follows me, you know, despite all the gains that I've made.
I think that's a very responsible thing to do. Like, not ignoring it. You embrace it, like you said, you've taken ownership of what you have done and what those things could potentially follow you through. And as you go through your PhD, I expect more stress, because obviously it's a pretty big freaking deal, right? You're gonna be writing them big papers and having them published and helping out people, but obviously that comes with stress too. And then I assume that you're gonna be moving right So there's that too. The next transitory step, but that could still just be just as stressful.
So I'm terrified of moving because of incarceration. I've been 7 times in the past 5 years in prison, as Shawn knows too. They can call you at 3 a.m. and tell you, roll your stuff up, you're going.
Yeah, that's
sometimes they don't even do that. They'll just pull you out of your cell, pack whatever they feel like packing, and you're off to the next prison. And you have no control over it. So for me, I've told myself again and again this past month that I've done all that I can do at SDSU, and that this is a good move. This isn't a traumatizing move. This isn't a failure. This is a step I need to take to advance myself, and once again, to continue to help those I left behind, because I'm never going to forget them. So this is a good move. So I keep telling myself over and over again, this is going to be fun. This is going to be great. You know, moving to Raleigh, North Carolina is going to be a wonderful experience that I probably should have done 30 years ago, but because of drug use and because of certain trauma, I never did. And guess what? I'm not going to be afraid to do it now.
You know what's funny though? As you were saying it, like I could tell from like the curve of your lip. This is just me being like a psych nerd. It's like I could tell from the curve, like you were getting happier, like you feel super excited. And I could tell from Shawn and Raquel, like she, like her smile was like, yeah, that's my girl right there. That's my girl right there. She's doing the big moves. That's the beautiful thing. It's like before the start of this podcast, and like when I met Shawn, it's like I would have never played like this guy right here, super peppy, super happy, super passionate. It's like I never knew that he was formerly incarcerated until Jenny dropped the ball, and I'm just like, sorry, wait, what? Who am I talking with right now? You know, and I was just like, oh, I wouldn't have pegged, because labels are labels are just labels, and they don't need to be as demonizing and dehumanizing as it is. And I think this is a good place to like transition out for today's episode. It's just that knowing that there is life for people out there who are struggling, if you just give them the chance to like tell their story or give them that lifeline that they need. Because both of you had gotten your lifelines through education or someone who is willing to give you that second chance. And I think that's cool, because I wouldn't have known, really. I wouldn't have known until you would have said it. And maybe if you never said it, I wouldn't have thought any better about it. It's like, I was just someone who's getting their PhD in criminal justice, and they're just gonna come and talk about it. It was like, oh no, that's a life experience. You lived it, and that's really cool. I'm really glad that you shared all your stories with me, even for someone who is justice impacted, who went through men's prison, women's prison, in and out, or it's a lifer. I don't know. That's fangirly. This is really amazing. But I'm really proud for everyone's steps to help back in the community, because that's basically what this podcast is for even what I'm doing. I'm trying to help people get educated on some of the small, minute things that nobody knew about. I wouldn't say small, really big things that I never knew about. And now that it's coming more into the table with policies, because now that with all that you've shown me, I really think that investment in yes, can I please finish before I take you out? No? All right, hold on. Doggo time. We call it Doggo Cam. So this is Doggo Cam. This is my doggy Shiro. He's really cute and really fluffy, but he's super needy. But my mom is here, so she could take him out. But yeah, so like I said, I'm proud, even if I only know you for about 2 hours and a half. Hi, Mom. Can you close the door, please? Okay, never mind. Where was I? I lost my train of thought. Right. To everybody here, thank you so much for hopping in. Thank you, Laura, for being very vulnerable and telling us your story. You too, Shawn, because these are very, like, you probably told your story loads of times, but even just sharing it with me, a complete stranger online, I'm really grateful, and I will take your stories with me. And I never expected this. Really, like, Shawn, you're the reason why that this even happened. So honestly, I give you kudos for connecting. Like, Raquel, you just popped in like what, 30 minutes, 15 minutes before we started. It's like, hey, we need her here. She's part of the reason why I'm here right now. And I'm glad that you helped them too, because it's the supporters that did it and the personal growth that the two of you up here, I keep doing that, but the two of you up here have done. So claps around, claps around. Any last closing thoughts before we go ahead and close this episode, and then we could do like our quick wrap on how we felt throughout this episode. Soapboxes are allowed.
I just wanted to tell you thank you for giving us this platform, and allowing us to tell our personal stories and to, bring light to this subject and to applaud people like Raquel, you know what I mean, who volunteers, who gets paid so little, but does so much, not only for our lives, but I mean, it's extremely cost effective in this case.
Yeah.
I mean, this is actually stopping crime, in its tracks, and it's stopping the misery of two people that were caught up in the justice system. So, I mean, what she does is so important, and I'm just really grateful that you allowed us, to share our stories on this platform.
No, absolutely. I think it's great for me to learn, and for all the viewers who eventually see this episode could learn from it, that labels are painful, and if you give someone else something else that is powerful and makes them feel more human, then they will be good for society, and they will do their best to make sure that they're never going to go back, and that they want to help more people. It's that I don't want to compare your experiences to something that's like cost beneficial, because I don't want to make it seem that way either. It's just like, no, you're just going to help the next person. Like, you want to help the next person when you're done with your PhD program. I know Shawn wants to do that as the same will, and I know that Raquel, if you're still in that job, right? Correct? Yes.
The job I'm in now?
Yes.
Yes. Fortunately, I moved up, coming to Southwestern College.
Good. No, but like, it's that the continue moving up and then putting that effort back. A lot of people don't put enough effort back, and I think more people should. At least
if I can share, because everything Laura just touched on with Raquel, which is amazing, like paving this path for us, the way she's doing it, Laura's doing it herself. She's a mentor of your next guest on your podcast, which is Amber.
Shoot. Really?
So Amber should be appearing on Monday. We should be back. And Laura's her mentor, which is absolutely incredible, because just a brief amount of time I got to text back and forth with Amber. Her story touched me. She was another youth that's gone through the system, and I think that just educating the public on that is gonna, it should touch a lot of people's hearts, but it should also open a lot of eyes to the trauma that's out there and what we do to our children without even being mindful that we're doing this to our children. So big kudos to Laura as well for being her mentor. That's huge. So Raquel's doing it for us, Laura for her.
And Shawn, you're doing it for everyone that you've meet so far.
Yeah.
No, you're doing a good thing, because you got all of us connected. So like I said, this wouldn't have happened. But well, I mean, if that's the end of that, I want everyone to stay in for a little bit just to get a quick check-in to see how everyone's been doing. But
before we end, can I just thank you also for just willing to educate yourself and willing to educate others who may be ignorant by choice or just haven't been around, this particular world of, justice or injustices. So I just really appreciate you doing that, because I feel like there's so many people willing to stick in their ignorance, like ignorance is bliss in a way. But I think it's so important for people to understand the reality, the humanity behind, what incarceration does, or the lack thereof also. So I'm just really grateful for the space and for the education and knowledge that is going to be, transferred to your viewers. And I always say it, but I'm just so proud of you too. There's many more like you that are, going to be following your path. So continue doing what you're doing, and everything you're doing has a purpose, whether it's small or large. And you've already impacted so many people. You've impacted me so much that allows me to continue to thrive in what I do and reinforces why I do what I do. I love you both. You all know that, but I always have to tell you.
No, that's absolutely the thing, because what Fulfilling Destiny advocates for is, in my, we have four C's. I'm sorry to my staff and interns if I forget all of them, but the biggest out of the four C's that I really keep into my heart is the idea of compassion. So I think that's important. And then, like I've mentioned to Shawn and Laura before we start, is that I will always explicitly say on which parts that I'm ignorant. And I'm not afraid to say that I don't know anything, because how I want to form certain questions or phrases, I want them to be intentional. And if I am ignorant, if anything, just correct me on it. That's why I had to say, like, which is the right way to call your names, or like what is the right way to address you, so I don't accidentally put you in those dark places, or like send you back to those traumatic times where yeah.
You introduced us by our last names. That was traumatic.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, because it's like I
was like Khalifa. I'm like, wait a minute.
It's because like I don't know. Okay, okay. Hold on. Before I totally dox myself, because it's I'm used to calling people by last names. It's how I was raised. So using like Mr. or MX, it's just how I want to do. I want to give people the chance to introduce their first names to themselves.
And part of our transition is getting to our identity of our first names. Because for 16 years I went by Khalifa, and that even became my nickname, was my last name. Yeah. So I didn't go by Shawn. Like nobody, when my family would come to visit room, like Shawn, it was so awkward.
Yeah, that's why. It's just like I had a feeling, like I said, whether if it's intuition or something, it's just like I feel like I would want them to say their first names. And of course I didn't just want to point to just whatever, because pointing is just as rude. So it's just like, well, if they're gonna come up and announce themselves, they should do it the way that they want to.
Nobody knew my name was Laura either. And the one time my folks came to visit me, one of my friends ran up and said, "Are you bank robbers' parents?" And my little Irish mother turned to my father and said, "They call her bank robber here." And my dad nodded his head, and that was just it. But nobody, and it's strange friending people on Facebook, because I always have to say, hey, it's me, bank robber, because nobody knew my name. And if people tried to call me Laura, I told them only my mother calls me that. You don't have that type of status with me. You don't call me that name. And it was a very strict rule. People knew they were in trouble if they ever tried to call me anything else. That was self-imposed,
Yeah. That's
of the years of conditioning.
Yeah. So sorry if I didn't mean to, but like that's probably just my.
That's part of the education.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
No worries. You don't have to apologize. It's a learning experience.
Yeah, that's the part where it's like, well, I'm putting my reputation on the line. My face, like I'm the face of this podcast. So if that blunder it should be on me, not my director's work, because I'm the one putting myself out here to.
It's a beautiful educational moment. That's how I viewed it.
Oh, yeah. And I'm gonna look back on this later, just like, God, I can't swear here. I'm supposed to keep this relatively PG-13, but I'm just like, well, just put the the clown makeup. Put the clown makeup. Yeah, no, I actually know how to bleed, so there's that. But well, so thank you everyone for educating me, for educating our viewers, and for giving me your time. Because I know I want to talk to you all some more, and I will, and that could be a separate clip after of let's get into more touch-minded, but we're gonna go ahead and call it here. So everyone wave. Oh, actually, that could happen after. So everybody wave. Say bye. And we'll catch you on the next episode where we continue our topic about the incarceration system, but with another guest. So till then, so good night everybody from me to you. And that would be it.